The biblical book of Ecclesiastes writes, "For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to laugh, and a time to weep. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to let go." We've come here this afternoon for a very difficult task. We're here this afternoon to bid farewell to a loved one, to bid farewell to someone who has been a part of our lives for a very long time, if not our entire life. Someone who has always been there for us. And we're here to give a final tribute and to say goodbye for the very last time to an outstanding individual, a very special man. We're here to say goodbye to Howard Nickman. And I'd like to begin the service with a selection of prayers appropriate for this occasion, beginning with a selection of biblical verses. Adonai ma'odam v'teido ehu ben enosh vat chashvehu Adam lehevel dama yamav kitzel over Saram tam shena yehiyu baboker kechatzir yachalof baboker yatzitz v'chalaf le'erev yamolel v'yavesh yemei sheno seinu behem shivim shana v'im bigvuros shmonim shana V'rabba mamal v'oven gigos chish v'na'ufa lemnos yameinu kein hoda v'navi levav chachma shmor tam re'ei yosha ki achris l'shalom achelihim yivdeh nafshi miyad sha'ol ki kocheni sela poda adinai nefesh avada v'lo yeshmu kol achosim bo v'yosho v'ofor al ha'oretz ki shahaya v'haruach toshuv el ha'olihim Asher Nisana. O Lord, what is man that thou should notice him? What is mortal man that you should consider him? Man is like a breath. His days are like a passing shadow. He flourishes and grows in the morning. He fades and withers in the evening. Teach us to number our days, that we may attain a heart of wisdom. Mark the innocent, look upon the upright, for there is a future for the man of peace. Surely God will free me from the grave, he will receive me indeed. My flesh and my heart fail, yet God is my strength forever. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. Man originated from dust and in the end returns to dust. What is the meaning of life? A human being is like the grass that withers, like the flower that fades, like the cloud that vanishes, like the breeze that blows. Life is as a dream that flies away. For man is mortal, but God is eternal, everlasting. O God, author of life and death, keep in thy loving care the soul of our departed, Howard Nickman, Chaim ben Shimon, who has been called back unto thee. Shelter his soul in thy presence, for with thee is eternal life. Remember all the good that he did in his lifetime, and bestow upon him the bliss that is treasured for the good in the world to come. Amen. We now turn to the book of Psalms, as I will recite the well-known 23rd Psalm, which has brought consolation and solace to many a family in times of need. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai roi lo exor binos deshe yarbitzeini al mei menuchos yinahaleni. Nafshi yeshove v'yancheni v'maglit tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki yeleg b'gates al maves lo irara ki ato imodi. Shiftecha mishantecha hema yinachamuni. Ta'arach lefanai shulcha neged tzeirerai. Dishanta v'shem endroshi kosi rivaya. Achta v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayoi. V'shavti b'veis Adonai. L'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The mysteries of life and death are beyond human understanding. We are perplexed and overwhelmed when pain and anguish befall those whom we love. In sorrow, confronted by death, which has taken Howard from our midst, we feel our frailty. Like delicate flowers, we flourish only for a day. Eternal God, Shepherd of Israel, guide us, your flock, with love and compassion. If in our grief and desolation we stray from you, do not abandon us, but draw us closer to you. In the valley of the shadow of death, beside the still waters, and in the green pastures, you, O Lord, are our shepherd. Be our strength and our shield, our stay and our comfort throughout all of our days. Amen. Today, we fondly recall all the love and the friendship that Howard Nickman brought into our lives. We're all filled with memories, and thank God, most of those memories are very good and fond memories. We remember the love and the friendship, the hardships and the pleasures, the trials and the triumphs, the moments of joy and the moments of sorrow that were shared together in a lifetime. We pray that these precious memories of many years together may be an abiding influence for good and an incentive to noble and sanctified living. I'd like to call now upon Howard's son, Bob, who's going to give us some words of eulogy in tribute to his father. Yeah, I think so.
Thank everybody for coming. It means a lot to my sister and I. I don't know if I can. I didn't know how I was going to react when I got up here, so I'm feeling kind of teary, and I'm happy that I can do that because I love my dad a lot, and I know he loved me, and he loved my mother and my sister, and it was can you guys hear me okay? A little louder? Okay. I'm just a little, and you know, I have to say I'm very blessed that I grew up in a family where people loved each other, and to have my dad this many years is, we were just talking to Susan about it, how lucky and blessed I am to have had my dad for almost 96 years. I mean, I'm not 96, but he was. almost. And, when I think about him, I just kind of wish that I even had half the kindness and compassion that he had. I always, admired that about him. He really was, he had kindness. Like I don't really know where it came from, but it was there, and I loved just sitting around talking to him. This isn't going to be the prettiest moment here, but it made me laugh really hard. I don't know. I just thought of it just this second. We were sitting around watching TV one day when I was visiting him about 10 years ago, and we were watching the news, and I don't know what was going on. I don't remember the specifics. And I just remember looking at him, and I go, "Look at this shit, Dad. This is like, what is going on?" And he goes, "Son, most people are ugly and dumb." And man, did I love that moment. It was just, he was serious, but I was laughing. I just thought it was, there was a little, sort of dry sense of negativity that, impressed me. I kind of like that. But I also know that on the flip side of that, he was, he really cared about other people, and was somebody that, wanted the world to be a better place. He just, he questioned, and I think the rabbi's going to talk about this a little bit because we talked about it in his office. He really questioned a lot of, the big questions, why we're here and what the purpose of this is, and he struggled with it, and he never really, I'm hoping now that he has peace with it because he never really did it. He wanted something that I don't think he ever quite found that spiritual connection that he craved. I think he craved it. He seemed like that to me. And, we used to talk about that stuff, and I feel that probably that he's found that now, and I was very, there's an interesting sense of relief to someone passing, even though I'm going to miss him like crazy and I won't be able to talk to him in, the way I can talk to you people right now. I can talk to him in other ways, but, he suffered a lot the last number of years with his body failing him, and he wanted to go. I mean, we talked about it a lot. He said, I can't do this anymore. And I know he talked to other people about that. So I'm very happy that he, has that wish that came true for him, and that it was a very peaceful passing. And, I want to read a poem. I have a friend who, hope I can find this. I'm doing this on my phone, so please excuse me. I didn't have a printer, so I keep this on my phone. Here it is. I do this podcast, and I was interviewing a guy who's a friend of mine, who told me he got through a surgery without anesthetic by reciting poetry. So we were talking about the power of it's not opening, and hold on, maybe it's down here. Oh, because it's written. And so I told him where I was heading. This was Friday morning. I said, I'm going to probably going to a funeral very soon of my father. And he said, I want to read this poem to you. It's a beautiful poem. I read it. I was crying when he read it to me, and I read it to my sister last night, and we were crying, and I'll probably cry again. So this is by the writer Raymond Carver, who's mostly known for short stories, but this is a poem called The Trestle. I've wasted my time this morning, and I'm deeply ashamed. I went to bed last night thinking about my dad, about that little river we used to fish, Butte Creek, near Lake Elminor. Water lulled me to sleep. In my dream, it was all I could do not to get up and move around. But when I woke this morning, I went to the telephone instead, even though the river was flowing down there in the valley, in the meadow, moving through ditch clover. Fir trees stood on both sides of the meadows, and I was there. A kid sitting on a timber trestle, looking down, watching my dad drinking from his cupped hands. Then he said, "This water's so good. I wish I could give my mother some of this water." My dad still loved her, though she was dead, and he'd been away from her for a long time. He had to wait some more years until he could go where she was, but he loved this country where he found himself, the West. For 30 years, it had been around his heart, and then it let him go. He went to sleep one night in a town in Northern California and didn't wake up. What could be simpler? I wish my own life and death could be as simple, so that when I woke up on a fine morning like this, after being somewhere I wanted to be all night, somewhere important I could move most naturally and without thinking about it to my desk. So I did that in the simple way I've described, from bed to desk and back to childhood. From there, it's not so far to the trestle. And from the trestle, I could look down and see my dad when I needed to see him. My dad drinking that cold water, my sweet father, the river, and meadows and firs and the trestle. That's where I once stood. I wish I could do that without having to plead with myself for it and feel sick of myself for getting involved in lesser things. I know it's time I changed my life, this life, the one with its complications and phone calls. It's unbecoming and a waste of time. I want to plunge my hand in clear water the way he did, again and then again. I just love that poem. Just the way it. Well, I don't want to talk about the poem. I think it sort of speaks for itself, and I also just want to take a second here to thank the two caregivers that helped my dad for the last couple of years, Gabriella and Misha. If two people were angels on earth, it's them, and they are kind, patient, wonderful people, and he loved them both very much. And I want to also thank my sister who went above and beyond in taking care of my dad and helping him, and also with my mom. And I feel very blessed to have all these people in my life. I'm a very lucky man, and I know my dad's journey is I hope he has a lot of fun wherever you go when this thing's done. I hope he's eating a lot of ice cream and laughing. I really do. Okay. Do you want me to bring her up, or do you want to do it? Okay, so Misha is going to come up and read something. I think is this the thing that your daughter wrote? Or you're going to talk? Okay. So this is Misha, and she's a wonderful person.
Hello, everyone. My name is Misha, and I had the honor 3 years ago to come and care for Mr. Nickman. And I can stand here and truly say that every day, because I did care for him every single day, was a pleasure. When I say a sweet and very kind man, who I share with Linda all the time, I said, no matter how he's feeling, even on his bad days, he always says thank you, which for me goes in great strides. I also had the pleasure of my daughters being in his life as well, which, in my opinion, I saw joy. I have a 5-year-old daughter and also a 13-year-old daughter. And it's unbelievable the impact that he has made on me and my daughters as well. Of course, they may have not seen him as much as I have, but the times that they have, it's always been very pleasant, very educational. He would sit and talk to them like they were grandchildren of his own. He often offered me a lot of wisdom as a parent. So I appreciate the conversations that I had with him. I appreciate Linda giving me the opportunity to care for him. I will share that my daughter did write a recent essay 2 weeks ago, and I was very shocked. I had no clue what she was writing about, but she actually wrote about Mr. Nickman. And I couldn't understand why she was asking me so many questions about him. And she had an opportunity to see him recently, and she realized as a teenager that his life was taking a different progression. So we did have a short conversation in regards to that, and I did bring the essay, but I'm just not strong enough to read it. However, the essay was beautiful for a 13-year-old to give a reflection of what she viewed in Mr. Nickman, a 95-year-old man. And the essay actually won second place. So I know that I know that he knows now that she's a winner, and I know that he's smiling. And he would definitely tell her that he's very proud of her, because he has on many occasions. I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss seeing him. I'm going to miss hearing him say, "Oh, my girls is here." I'm going to miss him calling people stupid. There were so many things we would talk about, and he would just say, "Oh, that's just stupid." But I've never in my life met such a very kind, loving man, and he loved everyone. I know that he definitely loved his 2 children, and I definitely know that he loved his wife, which I did get a brief opportunity to meet her. Lots of conversations about her. And I just thank you, and Linda, I thank you, and I love you guys.
Thank you for those moving tributes to Howard. Very fitting. I'm the rabbi at Wiggins Place, where Howard lived the last couple of years of his life. I first met Howard, I believe. He left a message on my phone in my office that he wanted to meet with me. I wasn't sure exactly what it was he wanted to meet with me about, because I don't think it wasn't said. So I went to his apartment, and it turns out that he wanted to know more about God. You know, and actually he came to my classes a number of times, and he asked me, why don't you give a class about God? Not a bad idea, but the name of the class was Contemporary Jewish Issues, Current Events, and things like that, and I thought I'd lose my audience. You know, if I speak too much, Jewish philosophy and theology about God, spirituality. Most people are not looking for that, not seeking that. But Howard was different. And, he had a very soft-spoken in the last few years, very, you really have to listen to him. And he said, "Can't you give a session about God?" And he kept at it a number of times. And eventually we did, of course. But then So Howard wanted to know all of these things. He wanted to discuss many areas of spirituality. He was a seeker. He had a real thirst for knowledge, interested in philosophy, wasn't afraid to ask questions, a real thinker. So I went to his apartment a second time or a third time, and I loaned him a few books that I have from a Jewish perspective about what is God, and pamphlets on the existence of God and things like that. He was always wondering. Eventually, a number of months later, I came back and he said he read through it and he still doesn't understand. But nonetheless, he was a seeker, and that's the important thing. So as Bob mentioned, he wanted to know, why are we here? What is the purpose of life? And I said, Howard, thanks for keeping it light. But it's very unique. I have to tell you, I'm in the rabbinate 34 years, in pulpits, and now in Menorah Park, and then Wiggins Place. I don't think I ever had such an experience. I don't think I had someone come to me like that before, that wanted to know more about God, spirituality, these direct questions, and I was very impressed with him. Want to know all these things is very unique. Howard was born in Cleveland nearly a century ago. He was in the apparel industry for a long time. In later years, he became a business consultant in the apparel industry. Interestingly enough, when he was of college age, they couldn't afford to go to college. But as an adult, he took classes in college in Case Western and in the New School in New York. Again, another indication that he was a true seeker of knowledge. He wound up teaching at Kent State as an adjunct professor in marketing and manufacturing, and I think that's a real accomplishment. And he took classes also at the College of Jewish Studies. Took every class he could with a certain teacher he particularly liked, Harold Bruner. He considered himself a secular Jew, but culturally very connected to Judaism. He was an avid reader. He devoured books on history, on politics. He was very intelligent, very knowledgeable. He was devoted to his family, father to Bob and Linda, grandfather, a sister to Muriel Cohn, who I had the pleasure of officiating at her adult bat mitzvah a couple of years ago from Myers Apartments on the campus of Menorah Park. And he was a most devoted husband to his beloved wife, Helen, and they were married for 65 years of a close and loving marriage relationship. And so we're all filled with memories today. He was quiet, he was thoughtful, he was generous, he was kind, he was compassionate, and he was warm. And of course, we all remember his dry sense of humor, always liked a joke, even in his elderly years, almost just about until the end. And he taught us many important lessons in life. And he lived a long life. And the rabbis tell us that even the longest life is but a moment between two eternities. And Judaism teaches us something that should comfort us. And that is that really there is no such thing as death, but rather that life continues, perhaps in a different form and in another existence, but life continues. That's what the biblical book of Ecclesiastes writes. The dust or the physical body may return to the earth as it was, but the spirit or the soul returns to God who gave it.